So you might be like me. I have this perfectly good pressure tank and it's given me great service for 15 years, but there's a couple problems. And the first one is, it is 15 years old, it's getting close to the time where it's gonna fail, but the biggest problem is the T-pack at the bottom of the pressure tank is galvanized fittings. And these galvanized fittings are starting to rust. They could give away at any time, but I'm also worried about how much those galvanized fittings are restricting the flow to my whole home. But how much work is it to replace it? Is it something you can do yourself? Relax. I'm going to show you how starting right now. Hi, I'm Gary the Water Guy, and I simplify water filtration to help you conquer crappy water for your family. Now, this video is perfect for you if you're a do-it-yourself homeowner, a plumber, or a contractor looking to replace a pressure tank and at the same time replace the T-pack. So as you can see, these galvanized fittings are rusting. In fact, they're rusting a lot. I'm just worried that one of these days they're going to give out and cause a flood. And the other concern is that the inside of these fittings, I have a feeling they're very small. They're restricting the flow to the whole house, but we'll find that out. So as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with my existing pressure tank. I am concerned about the T-pack and the galvanized fittings leaking or even bursting. So why not just replace the T-pack? Well, like I say, the existing pressure tank is quite old and it's time to be replaced. Anyway, I'm replacing it with this new fiberglass model. And as you can see, it has this beautiful neoprene jacket on it to make sure it doesn't sweat and to make sure that we don't get mold growth on the outside of it. And the new pressure tank holds approximately the same amount of gallons as the old one did. So I'm fortunate today to have Dave, my installer, on hand to do this installation for me. And as usual, I do the talking, he does the work. And where is Dave? Oh, here comes Dave now. So the line comes in from the well. Then we have the hydro coming from the well pump and also the hydro from the power supply. This is where the water goes to the house, and then it's hooked up at the base of the pressure tank with a T-pack. So we're going to have to remove all of that at the bottom. Just makes sense to replace this. For the first step is shut off the hydro. Then we need to label the different electrical connections so that once we pull it out, with the new pressure switch that we're installing, we're going to put it in the same spot. So we need to, because it disappears into the wall, we have to figure out where it goes. So using some tape here to label it. And then you just have to carefully sort out the wires to make sure as you're labeling them, you're numbering them at the same time. So it's going to be easy to reconnect once we replace all this with the new pressure switch. And then you can start pulling out the wires and carefully setting them aside. And then sorting out the wires and the connectors for the wires to make sure that everything is going to line up when we connect it again to the new pressure switch. You'll likely need a pair of needle nose pliers to straighten some of the wires so you can pull it out. And then once you've pulled it out, again, if any of the little labels have fallen off or there's any confusion about them, it's best to take a couple moments and straighten all that out so it'll be easy to reconnect. And then cut the tubing coming in from the well. And as always, there could be a little bit of water there, so make sure you've got something to capture the water. And then using some pliers, start to tear the whole thing apart so that you can untwist it from the base of the pressure tank. So in there it has a check valve. And again, we're going to be replacing all of this, the T-pack. And we've just basically bought the same components as we had before, but instead of it being done in galvanized as this was, we're going to replace it all with brass or copper fittings and brass or copper pipe, so that we won't have this concern again with the galvanized steel. So then we cut the pipe that's going out to the system. This is 3/4 inch copper. And again, there'll be a little bit of water trickles out. And Dave very quickly unscrews the base. So you can see that all the stuff that's inside and the corrosion that's taken place. And you can see all the mold that's on the back of the pressure tank. So again, that neoprene jacket on the new pressure tank is going to stop all that. And if for some reason it does get dirty after a number of years, you just unzip it, wash it, put it back on. And then with the new pressure tank in place, you can see the neoprene jacket on it. Dave's wrapping the connector at the base with Teflon tape, and he's starting to build this up together again. So because of the limitations we have in this particular situation with the electrical wiring and the wiring being very short, we need to recreate the same T-pack at the base of the pressure tank that we had before. Often you can buy pre-assembled T-packs, but that wouldn't have worked in this particular case. So Dave's going to put all the different components together and build it back up, much the same configuration as it had before, so we won't have any concerns with the wiring. It seems that whenever you replace the pressure tank, wiring is always a big concern, that you have enough wiring, especially if you're planning on moving the pressure tank a few inches or a few feet. Sometimes there just isn't enough wire to be able to do that. So again, all of the fittings that Dave is putting together, he's putting on Teflon tape and he's putting pipe dope on them at the same time. And that's to make sure that we don't run into any leaks. So as he builds together each section, he's assembling it. And of course tightening it up just to make sure that nothing leaks. Everything is put together. And you have to be careful because that pressure tank is empty at this point, so it's very light, so it's easy to knock it over, as you just noticed there. Dave's headbutting the pressure tank just to make sure it holds it in place. And as Gary moves in to give him a hand. And then we start putting together the top where the pressure switch is going to be, and also the pressure gauge. And again, we're rebuilding all of this in brass and copper just to make sure we don't have any of those same corrosion issues that we ran into before. And then tightening it all up. So the next step is we have to run the wiring back through into the pressure switch, and again it's going to be the wiring that comes from the hydro, the supply wiring, and it's also going to be the wiring that's going to the pump that's down in the well. So this is where it's really going to become handy and important to have had those labeled. So this is the old poly line that was connected up to the old pressure tank, so we're going to replace that. We want to have a nice new. So Dave's using a torch to heat up that poly pipe to expand it and make it softer, so we can remove it from the barbed fitting. And it still takes some elbow grease and elbow grease to yank that off. And the same with the new pipe. He's heating it up, like I say, to expand the pipe and to make it a little bit softer so that he can push it onto that barbed fitting, so it makes a nice tight fit, and you're able to push it on because like I say, it will be a tight fit, so we want to make sure that it stays that way. So you can either do that with a torch like Dave does, or you can use a heat gun. That's normally what I use, or in at home, you can use a blow dryer. It's going to take longer with a blow dryer, but it definitely can be done. So you need to push that poly pipe all the way up so it's bottomed out on that barbed fitting, and then we put on 2 hose clamps. And you always have to put on 2. You really need to be on the safe side here, because if that ever let go, it would be a disaster in the house. So you need to connect those up. As you can see, we connect them up opposite ways so that it distributes the pressure evenly over that barbed fitting, and also make sure that you have good access to it. And the same at the bottom. Again, we're connecting it up to that barbed fitting to with the 2 hose clamps. Next, he's heating up the getting his torch ready to solder this this T-pack onto the existing plumbing. So you could use shark bites for something like this. We're more traditionalists, and we like to solder whenever we can, and Dave's an expert at that, so it's no problem for him. And then we're installing the new pressure gauge. There was nothing wrong with the old pressure gauge, but it just made sense since we put in the new pressure tank and built this whole new T-pack that we put in a new pressure tank at the same time. So everything's brand new and will likely be in good shape for another 10 or 15 years. So Dave's putting all that together and tightening everything up to make sure that there's no leaks. And then pressure relief valve he's putting at the bottom here just to complete the installation, and then a hose bib. And the hose bib is very important at the bottom of a pressure tank, because that's where you can attach a hose to it and blow down the pressure tank, because all the crud that accumulates at the bottom of the pressure tank, we need to get rid of that. The water filtration system is downstream of this. So this is before all of that equipment. So the iron's going to accumulate in the bottom of that pressure tank, and it's a good idea to blow that off. Then we check the pre-charge in the tank. It should be 2 psi less than the cut-in pressure, and the cut-in pressure is 40 psi. Then we turn the power back on. As you can see, we're up and running again. And yep, we've got a leak, which we've got to fix. So it's come up to full pressure. We saw that we had just a little itty bitty little leak, which Dave has fixed already, and it's all done. So thanks, Dave. Again, you did all the work, I did all the talking. And click up here for your next video on water filtration, and I'll see you there. Any questions or comments, add them down below. I read them all. I'd love to answer yours.